Who are you? That is going to be our question of the day as we go through the movie The Lion King on episode number 2 of Invisible Inc. Let's go. Welcome back to Invisible Inc. If this is your first time stopping by, please like and share. I'll also post the link to where you can purchase some of the Invisible Inc. gear. So without further ado, let's get into The Lion King. The Circle of Life. A lot of people say they like I Just Want to Be King the best for the soundtrack, but I really think The Circle of Life is my favorite jam on here. Actually, sometimes I listen to it as I'm driving to work. But anyway, I really think this song is paying tribute to the balance in the world, the balance in the cycle of life, in which you have a certain animal that eats another certain animal, and you have these levels of the food chain and how the rain falls on the mountain, and the rivers come down to the ocean, all those things that make this world the way it is. And it's really helping us to first find our place, as it says, find until you find your place on the path unwinding. Basically finding where we fit in this world. What is our calling? What were we meant to do? And finding that place, and then going there and doing what we've been called to do, but also having respect to the balance of life, having respect of one another, having respect of the animals, having respect of the trees. Now, some people say, oh, if you have respect, don't eat. As you see, as Mufasa says, we eat the antelope. He didn't say you can't necessarily do it for nourishment for your body, but also we as human beings, we go a little far. We kill as many animals as we can. We'll wipe out forces just for profit. And so I believe in the way we do things as human beings, we're really messing up that balance of the circle of life, quote unquote. And as you see, as our atmosphere, our weather, the entire earth is kind of out of balance because we've progressed too far into this circle of life. And I think this song is really just saying for us to respect it, acknowledge it first, find your place in this circle of life, but also respect the cycle. Don't take it for granted, because we know with cycles, if you mess up one part of the cycle, the rest of the circle, it suffers as well. Toward the end of the song, The Circle of Life, you see the newborn king Simba being presented to the pride, I guess you would say. And it's basically that letting them know that, hey, this is the next king, so he has his role to play. Now, I believe in a lot of senses, especially when you go to a wedding, when you're a witness to certain ceremonies and certain events like that, that you have a responsibility, as they say during a wedding ceremony, that in front of God and these witnesses. Now, if I, as an individual, I witness two people go into an agreement, say, hey, this person say, hey, I'll do this for this amount of money, and they make me a witness. If I'm a witness, I have responsibility. The purpose of a witness is to hold both parties accountable for what they agreed on. And so us as individuals, if I'm at a wedding, then 2 or 3 years later, they're having issues, I have to remind them what they stood up and agreed to. It's not my job to take that person's side or that person's side, but it's my job as a witness to hold up the agreement that they made. And so in the same sense of Simba being born, they have these witnesses here, and basically their responsibility as witnesses is to remind him of what his purpose is, to remind him that, hey, I was there when they raised you up as the future king. So if you're not walking in your future kingness, it is my job to humbly remind you, hey, you can't do that. You got something else on your life. You got a calling on your life that you have to do. And I feel like we, as individuals, once you can witness that someone else has a calling, it's our job to keep pushing them and striving them and pressing them to be great, and not just let them wither away and die. And that's our responsibility in this circle of life, is holding each other accountable for what we know that the capabilities are of this person. And everything is in a positive and a loving way, but it's more so of if I have a friend that's doing less than I know they can do, I love you, bro. I love you, sis, or whatever it is, but I know you can do better. And I'm going to push you until you become great. Because I would rather you hate me and you to be great in your future than for me to let you waste your life and not say anything. And that's out of the love I have for those around me. And then it fast forwards to Scar. To me, when I see Scar, it's certain people when you see in movies, you're like, man, something ain't right about this cat. Like, I mean, no pun intended, but something's not right about this guy. Like, he just looks grimy. He just looked like he's up to no good. But anyway, I said all that to say, if you listen to Scar and his complaining that someone else has taken his spot in the circle of life in which he won't be king now because of the son that's born, I can see some underlining jealousy here. You can see some underlining, some low blows, some cuts, but to me, it's like Simba is like, or to Mufasa, it's like, you don't hear this, you don't see this. I see this. I'm watching. I see this. So I would watch my back with this cat. But also, you can listen to Scar, and if you listen to Scar good, you can tell he has that I want to be in charge mindset. That I just want to be telling other people what to do, and that's the difference to me between true leaders and then those who are just in charge. If you're looking around a lot of corporations in our world, there's a lot of people who are just managers. They're just in charge and they have no desire to better the people beneath them. They just want to be in charge so they can tell other people what to do. I really feel like the best leaders are those who don't necessarily want to be in charge, but they just have that leadership instinct inside them. And I truly believe that a true leader produces more leaders. They don't produce more followers. And so I think when we take our mindset out of the I'm just in charge mindset and say, hey, I'm just a steward of these individuals that's around me, and it's my job to bring out the best in them as their leader. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm not leading them anywhere. If I'm just in charge and we're staying stagnant, then I can't be a leader if I'm not going anywhere. And so then they shoot to the scene where Simba is up bright and early. He goes in the cave to wake up his father and his mother. And so Mufasa takes him to the edge of the cliff, or whatever you want to call it. And he really just started to break down life. And this is a very important aspect right here. And it circles back to the question of the day, which asks, who are you? And you see here, Simba is just he's a sponge. He has all these questions about a lot of different things. And so his father's just breaking down what this is, what this isn't, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And us as human beings, a lot of who we are comes from our parents, comes from our guardians. You know, some of us who may not have had our parents in our youth, but we had someone who was above us, who was older than us, who was just teaching us the ins and outs of life. And that person who taught us mostly everything, we basically tie our identity of who we are to that person, because they're the one who gave us all the information of life that we didn't know, and we took them as their word. It's not until we started to get a little older that we started to stray away from that a little bit, because we started to realize what's right, what's wrong, and all the other things. So on this cliff, when Mufasa is breaking down everything to Simba, in a sense, he is giving Simba his identity. If Mufasa would have said, you know, we may look like lions, but we're really zebras, and continue to tell him that, he would have went through his life thinking that. But as you see, he really gave him the foundation of what it is to have a kingdom, and what you should or shouldn't do as a king. And so they go along, they're walking, and as Simba is having a discussion with his father, he says something that we all said when we were young. In a sense, Simba basically says, I thought when you're a king, you can do anything. And so that sounds just like us. And as children, we wanted to be grown so bad. But I found out being grown is a trap. But we wanted to be grown, and we thought in our mind, I mean, we didn't necessarily say it out loud, but what we were telling ourselves as I want to be grown is I want to get to a point in my life where I can just do what I want to do. And I've realized as an adult now that being an adult isn't about doing what you want to do. Being an adult is doing what you're supposed to do or what you need to do. It's just about maturity, about wisdom, about taking care of things the best way you can in peace and love and harmony. And just treating others as the way you would like to be treated. And adulthood is all wrapped into that. But along with that, when we've done enough of what we had to do, we do get some freedom to do what we want to do. And we can make the choices that we desire for our own household instead of listening to someone above us. But I would tell all of the young kids, the young teenagers, chill out, like chill. Like being an adult ain't what it looked like. You got NIPSCO. Well, NIPSCO is for us in Northwest Indiana. You got Comcast, lights, gas, car note, life insurance, kids, postal work, everything. Like you got to buy milk, eggs, water, air. But in this little conversation, you hear Mufasa really break down to Simba to have respect for the creatures, have respect for the circle of life, and just having respect for the things that are around you. And I think that's one thing that we are missing in today's world. We don't seem to respect anything. We don't seem to respect another human being's life. We don't seem to respect the opinions of others, the thoughts, the feelings of others. Now, that does not mean just because I disagree with you or I feel like what you're saying is wrong does not necessarily mean that I don't respect it. Just like if you ask me what's 2 + 2 and I say 4, if you say it's 3 and if I disagree, that doesn't mean I don't respect your opinion. You're just wrong, in a sense. But then you get into all the gray areas of what's right and what's wrong and all that. But in a sense, it is a good thing that we can just have respect for one another. And I think a lot of our issues as human beings in the world, they would disappear if we just learned to respect one another and even show respect for our planet. Like we don't have another home. Like you can listen to all these, we're going to Mars. We're not. We haven't found out how to love one another and live in peace on Earth. So why would we go to another planet and tear that up? It doesn't make sense. We don't even take care of this planet. So why would we look to find something else to tear up? So Mufasa runs off. There's hyenas in the Pride Land that he has to go take care of. And Mufasa says, no, you can't go. It's too dangerous, whatever you want to say. And Simba goes into a state that we often went into when we were children. A lot of times that we think just because our parent don't let us do what we want to do, that they just being mean, they trying to stop our fun. But I learned from my own life, there's a lot of things my mother would not let us do. And I'm thinking, oh, she's boring, she's being mean. But it comes to find out when I'm adult, a lot of those things she kept us from doing saved our lives. A lot of those things that she kept us from doing saved us from being with the wrong crowd and being involved in the wrong type of things. And I realize as a parent now how hard that decision can be of letting them enjoy life, but also keeping them safe from influences that they don't realize can hinder their future. And I'm grateful to my mother for the times that she didn't let us run the streets all times of the night. And she didn't let us go with certain groups of people that we thought were, oh, they're just this or it's just cool. But I look at some of those individuals and the things that they were getting into that their parents didn't know. I would have been there if my mother would have let me go. And so to us youth, that every time your parents say you can't, I mean, I can't speak for all parents, but the parents that I know, they're just doing the best that they can to protect their children from the dangers that the children can't necessarily see or understand right now. Like a lot of us do, when we have gotten an answer we don't want to hear, we go find somebody else to complain to. So Simba goes to his uncle and jibber jabber, I'm not big enough to do this and all that. And in a sense, he's a child, so he really don't know, but he's just doing what children do. But Scar, being as trifling as he is, he plants a seed in Simba's mind, and he knows that there are the things called buzzwords. If I say a certain word in a speech, or if I say a certain word in an advertisement, it catches your ear. And so he puts the seed in Simba's mind about being a brave lion. Only the bravest of lions go there. And which he knew as the devilish person he is, when he planted that seed of, oh, only the bravest lions go there, Simba wanted to be a grown, an adult lion. He's going to want that. He's going to desire that. He's going to chase after that. Oh, I'm the bravest lion. And so now that seed is beginning to grow inside Simba. And so, of course, he comes up with a plan. So he go grab Snarler and say, hey, we're going to the water hole. I said all that to say sometimes there are issues in our lives as individuals or someone else around us, and we don't realize that they may have done something, but you may have planted the seed, or somebody else may have planted the seed that propelled them into that. Now, once again, that's not an excuse for actions, but also you have to take account for your part that you play in some of the demise of other people. And so Simba and Nala is on their way to the water hole, of course, so they can ditch the dodo and go where they want to go. And just Yazoo begins to talk to them about traditions and things that they used to do or they've done through other lineage. And Simba is like, well, that's the first thing that's going to go. And then Yazoo says, well, not as long as I'm around. And then he says, well, okay, in that case, you're fired. So basically, you see this tug of war between generations, and between the old school way of thinking, and then you have the new school way of thinking. And for me, myself, in my personal ministry, this struggle is a close struggle of mine, which trying to bridge this gap between generations, in which I have the main issue of I'm standing on the bridge, but I have two generations on both sides refusing to come to meet each other at the middle. The old tradition is saying, well, y'all don't know anything. Y'all young. We've been through this before. You know, you have to do it this way and this. And then you have the older generation saying, well, no, y'all old school. Y'all don't know what y'all talking about. The world is different. So you need to do it this way. And if you look at movies like Drumline, Stump the Yard, whenever there's a competition at the end, there's always a tug between the old generation and the new. And the way to win is always a combination of both. But we are so stubborn that the old school want to stay old school, the new school want to stay new school, and we don't want to meet in the middle to make it work. I just can't wait to be king. Once again, can be translated into I just can't wait till I'm grown. But we really don't understand as youth what it is to be grown. That when you wake up every day, that you have to find a way to feed yourself, that no one else is going to do it. You have to find a way to get these bills paid. No one else is going to do it. So being a king isn't everything that everybody wants it to be. And once again, as adolescents, we just think we can just do what we want to when we become adults, or king, as you want to say. But it's really more to it than just doing what you want to do. And I really like the elephant graveyard scene in a sense, because it shows us as human beings where we're so tough. We're so tough. Especially with the internet, you know, people are real tough on the other side of the computer, but we are so tough that we can think we can just do anything. We can handle anything. And then when we get in trouble, then we want to play victim. You see Simba and Nala run into this. He's the toughest, you know, he's the king and all this. And then when he gets there, when the hyenas get after him and he's cornered, now he's this victim. And it shows us it's a humbling experience in which you realize that you aren't as tough as you thought you were. You aren't as strong as you thought you were. You aren't as smart as you thought you were. Now, in a sense, though, I believe that us as human beings, we're both in the same. We're a lot smarter than we give ourselves credit for at times, but then also we're not as smart as we think we are sometimes. And that goes in every category as far as strength and what you can deal with. We're kind of both at the same time. And so Mufasa saves him, of course. And then he has a talk with his son. And basically he tells him that, you know, being a king isn't about not being scared. It's not about just going and doing what you want to do. And then we see in the movie Thor, his father tells him the same thing, that a wise king never seeks out war, but he's always prepared for it. And Mufasa's kind of saying something similar here, is that even though you're strong, you're big, you can fight, but as a wise king, you never seek out those things. You never seek out trouble. You never seek out to go whoop on other people. You only are ready to defend yourself when necessary. And just being a wise king, just making wise decisions for your well-being of yourself, but also thinking about the decisions that you make affect those around you. So being an adult and a wise king and a wise adult isn't all about doing what you want to do, but when the things that you do affect those around you. If I just go to work and go crazy and lose my job, that affects my family. And so I have to humble myself in a lot of situations where I could go off or do crazy things, but someone else at home is going to suffer the consequences. So I have to be wise in how I conduct myself. And Simba asks his father, this is one of the deeper principles in the movie. Simba asks his father, you know, Dad, we're pals, right? Right. We'll always be together, right? And then Mufasa was like, So he just started telling him a story because he didn't want to answer the question in that way, to give his son a false idea that he will always be there. Because Simba knows one day he's going to have to die. And Simba's going to have to defend himself. And so he tells him the story about the kings. And in a sense, Simba basically took what his father said the wrong way. But Mufasa basically said that, you know, the kings are in the sky. And one day, you know, he didn't say one day, but basically one day he'll be there. And he just said they'll always be there looking over you. And so will I. Now, Simba probably assumed this to be that, yeah, he'll always be here. But what Mufasa was basically saying is, I'll do the best I can to watch over you while I'm here. But even after I pass, when I go to the sky, I'll watch over you from there and I'll always be with you from there. But Simba really took it as, you're always going to be there. And that failed understanding, you will see progress throughout Simba's life and cause him some serious harm. Now we have this scene with the hyenas in the cave, and Scar comes and sings Be Brave. By the way, I think this is one of the best lyrical songs I've heard in my life. Be Prepared. If you listen to it, the vernacular, the vocabulary words, very great song. But anyway, so if you see the context of this song, you see the green smoke. Anytime you see a particular greenish background or a greenish atmosphere, or a person that wears green, like Loki in the Avengers, green always usually represents envious, or someone being envious, or jealousy. So when you see that, you'll know. And basically, this song is basically a song of envy and jealousy. Basically, someone else is king that I'm not, and now I'm going to be king, so I'm going to take it. And throughout this song, I noticed a lot of things when I got older that I didn't notice when I was a kid. When you see when you see Scar sitting on the podium, and then you see the hyenas marching, just like Hitler did in Germany, and it's basically giving us a sign that when he becomes king, he's going to be a dictator. He's not going to be one of love, compassion, and respect for the cycle like Mufasa is. He's going to be a dictator, and that kind of shows through this song, and that he says he's going to take it by force and all kind of things he said. I mean, if you listen to the song, it's kind of grimy, like chill out, dude. And like most corrupt people running for office, Scar makes this bold statement. You stick with me and you never go hungry again. Now, especially as Americans, we can pay a lot of resemblance to this because we have these politicians who, while they're running, they promise us the world. Oh, I'm going to drain the swamp. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do this. And then when they get in office, nothing. Now, in their defense, in a sense, some things, people who have never been there, they'll make these statements, say, oh, I'm going to do this. But then they get there and they realize how hard it really is to do that, because I don't care who you are in power in this type of country, that there are other people that are fighting against everything that you do. And so even if you have the best intentions of doing something, you may get there and realize that I ain't gonna be able to do this because all these people are against me, or that the way I realize that things really work when I'm here, I realize the idea I had I really can't do because it's not practical. And so sometimes some politicians, they just lie and just say whatever, but some people really had good intentions of doing certain things. But once they got in office, they realized they couldn't do them because of some type of hurdle, or just not practical based on how the country is set up. Scar walks his nephew to the gorge, tells him he has a surprise for him, tell him to work on his roar. But also we see him just setting Simba up for the fall. So his intent in this scene was to kill Simba and Mufasa. But of course, he only succeeded at one. So now we see the gorge, we see the wildebeest, and Simba's there. Scar goes running as if he don't know what's going on. So to really summarize all that part, Simba watches his father murdered. And that's a dramatic thing. I really don't think we really understand that. That's a dramatic thing to watch your father not only die, but be murdered. And that messes him up. And I think if we look at our own lives, a lot of us have a lot of issues because of some horrific things that we witnessed in our childhood. And once again, that does not excuse the behavior, but it gives us a sense of understanding of what's really going on with us. That if you see something that tragic in your childhood, that will mess with your mind. None of us are above that. Like, something like that will mess with your mind. Simba, he approaches his father, and he's really having a hard time as a child processing what's going on. He's having a hard time processing what's happening. And it's really a sense of, why did this, how could this happen? And even as a child, you see how sponge-like they are, in which he watched his father die. He watched his uncle kill his father. But then Scar, once again, realizes how seeds work. And he comes and plants a seed, which will go on to mess up Simba for a long time. He basically tells Simba that, what have you done? If it wasn't for you, your father would still be alive. So he planted the seed of guilt in Simba, the seed of guilt. And now we see Simba feel this. He takes on this seed, and he immediately begins to feel the pressure of it. And wait, no, it was an accident. I didn't try to. And so he tells him to run away and never return. But I would encourage all of us to not let people plant those seeds in us. Not let people hold things over our head. There's things we've done in our past, including myself, that I'm not proud of. But I refuse to let anyone hold that over my head. That you're not going to make me continuously feel guilty about that. Once it's done, it's done. Only thing that you can do as a human being is go apologize it. If there's something you've done, you can try to fix it. But we cannot let people plant those seeds of guilt in us, but also hang stuff over our heads for the rest of our lives. You ask for forgiveness, you forgive yourself, and you move on. But if we let people do those things to us, we'll just be like Simba. We're running the rest of our lives, running from these situations, but also feeling this heaviness of guilt inside of us, in which even if you've done it, you can't hold on to that stuff because it will eat you alive. And so once Timon and Pumbaa finds Simba, and Simba wakes up, you can see that Simba is in a state of despair. And from the movie The Dark Knight Rises, Bane said that there can be no true despair without hope. And if you take that principle and break it down, if you have a child who hasn't seen his father or his whoever for a while, they desire, they're upset that they haven't seen him, they can't spend time with him. But now take a child that, let's say the father called him and say, hey, I'm gonna come pick you up at 11 o'clock, be ready. And then this child is sitting there at 11 o'clock and the father never shows. Then he falls into a state of despair because he had hope that his father would show up. And so what Bane is saying is, when you have this hope for something, you hope that the father would forever be there. And then you realize that he's not always there. That hope turns from this great feeling of hope to despair because you were putting your faith in something. And then when your faith is struck down, then it seems to turn to despair, in which we have to be careful not to let ourselves go, because despair is a dark place. Hakuna Matata. And I kind of, how should I put this? I like the idea of Hakuna Matata. It means no worries. But in some of the things that Timon and Pumbaa said, I was like, I ain't down with that. And I do believe in not necessarily worrying yourself about things in your life that you can't change. If you can change them, then why worry? If you can't change them, then why worry? So I agree with that aspect, but I don't necessarily agree with if the world turns their back on you, you turn your back on the world, because it's hypocritical. In which when someone hurt us, we get upset, and sometimes we think the wrong part was the part that they did it to us, but actually the wrong part is the fact that they did it at all. And so if I turn around and do something bad to you, I'm just as bad or worse than you were. I'm being a hypocrite because I'm upset that you did it, but I turn around and do it as well. And so in my honest opinion, in that situation, you're worse than the person who did it the first time because you allow them to control your actions. So I don't agree with just doing what people do to you. I just believe in just treating people the way you want to be treated, regardless of how they treat you, because I can't control how you treat me. I only can control how I treat you. And Simba has this new life, this newfound happiness, or this newfound joy in this different environment. He don't have any worries. And you see, as they're walking on the log, they're singing, and Simba's growing a beard and all that stuff, and he's getting his mane, and he's growing from a child to an adult. But he's growing with this new perception, this new mindset out in this different world. But there's an issue here. And I think this is a very, very important issue in this movie, is that sometimes those areas in our life that make us joyous and happy, they're not always good. Because we forget that Simba was raised, he was born to be a king. And so he's not king out here. He's not in his place out here. And this area right here where he's at, it's a growing phase. He's growing. He's going through some things. He's getting some new doctrine in a sense. But he's basically living a life away from his purpose. He has been called to be king. And then here, he's just staying out here enjoying his life, but he's not fulfilling what he has been called to do. And this area here right now is just a distraction. It's basically just to distract him from being where he's supposed to be. And the thing is, he's not completely happy. And we see it in the next scene where they're just laying in the grass, and he just feels this feeling of emptiness because he's not where he's supposed to be. Our fulfillment comes from when we are doing what we're being called to do. And you see that here, in which he's still distressed. He's still, something, he still has that void. Something's missing because he is not fulfilling his purpose. He's supposed to be king. Now, a major reason why he's not fulfilling his purpose, because he has this Hakuna Matata mindset, in which it means no worries, but also avoiding the things that you don't like. And in order for him to take his rightful place as king, he has to go face his past, go face some errors that he made. He has to go face some uncomfortable situations in which our greatest accomplishment is really right past that struggle. And we don't want to face the struggle. We want to be, as I say a lot of times at work, is humans. We want the path of least resistance, and that path of least resistance does not lead to greatness. And so Nala shows up. Of course, she tries to eat Puma, but they straighten that situation out. And so Nala is a representation of the things in our life that come back to remind us of what we've been called to do. And of course, Simba, he's been avoiding this past, so he's uncomfortable when she comes after he realizes this. But then she immediately starts to remind him, like, hey, your mother misses you. Your mother thinks you're dead. The pride, they think you're dead and you're supposed to be king. And so Simba don't want to hear that because he knows what it takes for him to be king, of him facing his past. But we always have those things in our life that come back and remind us, like we may be at a dead-end job or a job we don't necessarily like. But I do encourage us to do the best we can at where we are. But also something always reminds of us, hey, you have this gift. You have this passion. What are you doing? Like, you should be pursuing that even where you are right now. And a lot of times it's uncomfortable because we feel inadequate. We feel like we're not good enough. We're not strong enough. But whatever you have that's in you, trust me, it's good enough. Now, you may have to work on it and hone it. But whatever your calling is, you are well equipped to take care of that calling. And you see here that Simba comes back. He's beginning to be frustrated with himself and it's to be honest, I don't think it has anything to do with Nala. And then you see him pacing back and forth saying, oh, who does she think she is? That's what he's saying. But what's really going on with him is that he has been reminded that he has to do something that he don't want to do. That he doesn't want to go back and face his past. He doesn't want to go back and face his uncle. He doesn't want to go back and fight through the portion that's there to keep him from his calling. And that's really what his struggle is about. It wasn't about Nala. It could have been anybody that came and told him that. He would have the same reaction because he don't want to do what he knows he should be doing. But also what it also shows is that it reminds him that he has some things that he need to resolve. That there's some resolution in our past that we need to make that we don't want to. There's some people that we've offended. There's some things that we've done to hurt people. There's some people who have offended us and that we need resolution in our past because a lot of times the people that are around us, they are there to help us, to propel us to our calling. And we don't want to get resolution with them because sometimes we have to humble ourselves. And so as we look at Simba pacing back and forward, just talking junk about Nala, talking junk about this and that, what his true hurt is about. This is very, very important. He's pacing back and forth. He's yelling this and this and this. And now when you watch movies and stuff, you see one character being pried at, and you see one person just pushing their buttons and what is it? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? They give all these, oh, it's nothing, this and this. And then when they get to their moment, their breaking point, usually whatever they lash out in frustration, that's the real truth. And so you see Simba here is he's pacing, he's doing this, he's doing that. And then he yells at, you said you never leave me. Important principle here. Everything in his life, all this frustration he has certain things that are on the surface. But when you get down to the root of it, he has this frustration, this anger, this battle with his identity because he's frustrated with his father. And then also he's frustrated with himself. He's upset with his father because his father, in a sense, told him that he would never leave him, but now he's gone. But also he has still this seed of guilt in himself that his father is gone because of him. And so his real issue right now is his relationship with his father. And if you look at a lot of our lives, anyone I've ever talked to that's really confided in me about issues in their life and the anger that they have, the frustration that they have, it has always, quote me on this, it has always led back to their relationship with their parents or their relationship with their guardians or whoever raised them. Every single time they have some art or some issue or some hurt or some pain from their childhood that derives from their relationship with their parents. That doesn't mean that parents have done something wrong. It doesn't mean that that the parents didn't do something right. For whatever reason, it just always derives back to the relationship with their parents because their identity of who they are as a person, which leads to our question of the day, who are you? all that derives back to our relationship with our guardians, our parents, or whoever raised us. They taught us a lot of things that we know. And so you see here, Simba's main thing, his main issue is directly reflected to his relationship with his father. And so even Rafiki, you see Rafiki is Tisana, squash banana. He's singing, and then basically Simba doesn't know who he is. And then he asks the question, who are you? And then he tells him, you Mufasa's boy. And then he leads them through the jungle. He sees his father in his reflection. And then Mufasa shows up. I love this scene. There's a lot of things that Mufasa said. He says, you have forgotten me. You've forgotten your calling. But this is an important thing I would like to really stress to everyone out there that's listening. Mufasa says, you are more than what you have become. I take that to heart. I see a lot of people in my life, in my family, my friends that they're living their lives in fear. They're really not becoming who they have the potential to become. They're not living their life to the fullest potential. And it frustrates me, not that I think that I know what's best for them or that I think they should be doing this or doing that. But it's just that I know that they have so much potential inside them that they're not using. So many things in the world that they can explore or they can take advantage of that they're not. And it's not always because they don't know, but they're choosing not to. And so from Mufasa's perspective, he's like, look, dude, you are not becoming who you are meant to be. That you are not who you have the potential to be. That you are more than what you have become. And I would say this to all of us that are not fulfilling our purpose, that are not feeling that burning desire inside of us. You are more than what you have become. You have not been born to wake up, go to work, pay bills, and die. You have been born to do more than just die and just suffer through life. And those of us who have faith in God, you have been called to do more than just go to church, go home, go to work, and die. You have more than that on your plate in front of you. So reach out and grab that, whatever it is. Let's stop living in fear. And I will start with myself. Let's explore the world and do the things that we have that burning desire to do. And then Rafiki comes over. The weather, very peculiar. And then he goes in the whole thing and he slaps Simba. And Simba says, what did you do that for? He said, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. That's a very profound principle there. Is a lot of us are holding on to hurt that's in the past. A lot of us are doing things that are reacting to something someone done to us in the past. As Rafiki said, I know it hurts. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. It's already done. So you're going to have to choose to either be a slave to that or press on. The most profound point in Simba's life is the moment that he chose to go and face his path. He chose to not live his life outside of his calling. And that's the deepest principle in Simba's life, is that moment, that choice. The choice that he made to say, I'm not continuing to live my life below my means or below my calling. And I'm going to choose to face my path and live in my rightful place. Simba goes back. He battles his uncle. They battle, they fight. And I mean, all that is just really a fight scene, which I kind of liked. But the point I want to jump to is that once the fight is over, it begins to, the fires start to, wither away. And so Simba looks at Rafiki, and Rafiki points to the edge. Rafiki is telling him, all right, now all this is done. Now get where you belong. Get to your spot. Go. You need to take your place in this circle of life. And Rafiki is like, it ain't over until you get back in your spot. Now I would convince all of us, we look at the condition of Pride Rock when Simba was not in his proper place. You see how tore up it was? Everybody else life around there suffered because Simba was not where he was supposed to be. Take a look at your own life. You have a calling. You have something to do in life. You have a passion, whether it's art or dance or music. You have something inside you that's burning that you can't get rid of. That's your calling. And Pride Rock in your life is going to suffer until you get where you're supposed to be. It starts with that choice that Simba made. He said, I'm going back. He's basically said, I've made up my mind that I'm going to do what I've been called to do. we have to make up our minds on if we're going to listen to that voice, that burning desire that we have, or we're going to let our lives wither away and just pay bills and die. That's a choice that we have to make. And I would love to see all of us doing, not even if you don't make it to greatness, but at least striving to do the things that we love to do. I want to thank all you all for joining me on the second episode of Invisible Ink, breaking down The Lion King. Our next adventure will be the movie I Am Legend, starring Will Smith. So once again, if you have the movie, go watch it, take some notes, and let's discuss. So once again, I thank